Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. Oprah Winfrey. After you, mm, are you striving to meet the daily challenge to 10x your business? Become known for your products or services on JMMB Radio podcast, heard in over 200 countries, or if you're ready to take the leap, move to Mindset Movers TV as a host or series producer, broadcasting to the combined audience of Roku and Fire TV. Every day in business has its challenges. Find a partner with Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. Contact us at jmmbradio@gmail.com. Change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. Mandy Hale. Today we welcome Tanya E Hood, who is an author, coach, speaker, and strategist. She provides a simple solution for divorcees to eliminate conflict and find their core strengths to navigate life after divorce. Her life-changing solutions give her clients insight into breaking the barriers that hinder them from reaching their next level. She is an electrical engineer by discipline, a project manager by trade, and a certified practitioner of organizational and assessment development. She utilizes strategic techniques gained in real estate investing and credit restoration to help her clients build a firmer financial foundation. Welcome, Tanya.
Yes.
Hello.
Welcome, my dear. So glad
Thank
to
you.
have
Thank
you
you.
here.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, and you are busy to say the least.
That's how you start making a hand.
So tell us, how did you get on this road? How did you decide that you wanted to help people?
Well, like a lot of other stories, it starts with something that you've gone through. So, for those of you that have read my book, you're already mindful of this story. I got married at 21, and after 11 years of marriage, I found myself going through a divorce, having to raise my two sons alone. That financial devastation, I had to figure out a way to make the comeback. And when I did, I wanted to go back and help others cross the landmines I had already crossed.
All right. Short and sweet.
We could talk more, but I don't know how far you want to go down the rabbit hole of my world.
Oh, please. That's what we do best.
Well,
Follow people down the
then
rabbit
let's
hole.
take another trek because what happened to me in that instance was one of the things that I support a lot of divorcees, not just divorcees, but primarily they're my focus because I realized I needed a lot of support and there wasn't anyone there to help me through the process. So as I've learned how to get myself to a better position, the divorce took my credit score from a 736 down to a 526, and people treat you way different when you have a score like that. And a
Mhm.
lot of that came because there were still things that were tied with my ex husband, and even with things that weren't. There are companies that decide just because you say you got divorced on paper, if they can't get the money from the other person, they'll try to get it from you regardless. And that takes some time for you to weave through that process. So, what I do is help individuals get themselves to a better position by first getting your credit score to a place where you can start leveraging it. Because once I got back up into the 700s, that is when I started using my personal credit to leverage to access business credit to start going into real estate investing. And that is where I started making some financial adjustments. One of the things I call my wealth strategy.
Oh,
So
no,
that
that's
was a piece of the journey.
Oh my, yeah.
yes, yes, indeed. And the whole thing with a divorce,
Mhm.
it's so much emotions
Exactly.
tied up. It's just that you can't really think about, let's say, the important stuff
That's true.
because your heart is in the game. And then you have to think about, okay, I got kids to take care of. I don't have another income. I mean, I went through a divorce. I came home from work and the lights were turned off.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I went through a divorce that was probably not too good, because my husband was ex-husband, I should say, was upset because, I mean, you want to leave. What am I going to do? What you
Mm,
want me to do? Baby, don't leave. I mean, you had to have thought about this and to make this decision. So I'm not
mhm.
trying to keep you from your happiness. If that's going to make you happy to leave, then leave. But I was too calm about it.
Okay.
So he wanted to make my life miserable. I had to hide my car for a month because I came out, the tires were slashed. Then
Mm,
I come home from work. He turned the gas and electric off because that was in his name. So
mm,
it's a lot of trauma that sometimes happens in a breakup. And, basically you're in survival mode when it's
exactly.
happening. You just trying to make things happen, keep everything together the best you can for that moment. You're not thinking beyond that
Mhm.
time.
But you have added layers, unfortunately, because there are a lot of individuals that were like myself. They no longer really knew who they were on the other side of their marriage because they poured
Yes.
who they were into the middle of that marriage. You were more of mom and wife than you were who you were at the core of your being. I know for me, I forgot. I forgot some elements of myself. I forgot some basic things that I really like to do because I spent so much time trying to make certain that they were okay. And so when it came time on the other side of that journey to really figure out what Tanya needed, I had to go through a discovery of my strengths, which is something that I share and teach. So in my premier book, Red Alert, Is He the One? The Pocket Guide Defining the Love of Your Life. It's a journey of self-discovery. Now I know it says the pocket guide defining the love of your life, and a lot of people think that that's a man, but the true love that we really need to be clear about is us. Who
Mm.
are you at the core of your being? Who are you in the seat of your soul? Who are you so that you can make decisions that you can get through to your next level? And that's what the book helps you figure out along the way.
I
Wow,
love that.
I
Yeah.
like that too. I needed that book because just like you just said, I didn't know what kind of ice cream I liked.
Oh my gosh, what is up with us? I did.
We
Yes.
forget ourselves when we're in relationships. We forget who we are.
It was so funny. It was like, what do I like?
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
And that is so sad, but true. I had to go on a discovery of my favorite ice cream because I wasn't sure. I discovered a new flavor, but I still decided I did like the one I originally thought I liked initially. So that was helpful, but I
Yeah,
had to go on a search.
and it was so much. It was so much pain and crying and what did I
Mhm.
do wrong?
I know.
It was a mess. It was really a mess, and it took me about a year to
Mhm.
really get myself back. And then I came out of it as the mad black woman.
Ah, well,
So
I took
then,
longer than that. And there's a lot of people that need more support because a year is not really enough to really gain clarity about who you are. In addition to the book birthed a course called Navigating Life After Divorce. That's a 5-week course that I offer to help people, one, get clarity of their core strengths, how to eliminate conflict, and I walk them through elements of the book so that they know how to get to the better financial freedom with clarity of who they are and how to set up standards and boundaries because that's the part that doesn't help us get healed fast enough. So it took me 3 years to just get a discovery of basic standards, just the basic standard.
yeah, I think the year part was me being shut in, so to speak.
Oh,
Okay, after it took a minute because I think I stayed single for like 10 years
okay.
after that. It was just me, myself, and I didn't, I was afraid to open up again.
Yeah.
So I said a year, but that was a year of discovering what kind of ice cream I liked and, little things. But it,
Right.
but it definitely took longer than that to really overcome that pain because it was painful.
Mhm.
And then to come out of it and not know who you are.
Yes. And sad, but that is the story for a lot of divorcees. And it's because we were doing what we were supposed to do. There's a reason in the Bible God says that the two shall become one. A marriage, and I didn't learn this, y'all, until afterwards. So, a marriage is the one place where you truly learn what it means to sacrifice and pour all of your being into another soul. As a result, if you're in a healthy relationship, and I walk through with my clients, giving them elements about what a healthy relationship looks like. And it starts with them knowing who they are at the core of their strength. When you know how you are really wired and the focus areas that you really look at, then you can get more clarity if the person that you're working with is complementary. So that's in chapter 6 of my book. You have to know who's complementary to your soul, your gifts, your dreams, your talents. Because if you find someone that isn't, there's a ripping. In addition to the ripping that you already have when you separate your soul from another, because that's divorce. It happens on a couple of levels, a spiritual level and a physical level. So, as a child of the king, I look at everything from two perspectives because that's what we live in. And we don't pay enough attention to the fact that it's our spiritual parts that get ripped apart so deep. That's the part that we're trying to discover. That's the piece that we don't pay enough attention to. And if you get enough clarity to know who you are, the core of your soul, you can fix the external stuff. The physical things can be reassessed. You can buy a new house, get a new car, put yourself in a new environment or a job. But if you don't know your core strengths, what you bring to the table, who you are at the midst of your being, you don't know who else to connect with so that you can flourish and grow. So that when you pour yourself into your next relationship, it's not devastating your soul, it's adding value.
Mm.
Yes, indeed. And I learned that the hard way.
Me too. That's why I wrote a book about it.
Because at this point, I am the home.
Okay.
And the way I see it is whatever God has for me, I'm going to have it with or without you.
Exactly.
I know my worth,
Mm-hmm.
whereas then I didn't. I really didn't know. You don't get taught these things a lot of times in the household, and coming from, as I look back, growing up, my household was dysfunctional.
Mhm.
A lot of us.
Yeah. And we
So,
tend to follow the patterns that we saw.
Exactly.
yes,
I
Very difficult
often
to
tell my,
throw away those patterns.
but
yes.
you don't know, which is why chapter 4 of my book is titled Patterns, because we don't pay enough attention to what that looks like. You get used to it like a habit, it becomes second nature. But if you have bad habits, it doesn't help you progress into the next level until you are deliberate and intentional, which is also chapter 5, to make the adjustments needed because you will select the elements of the men that are around you as a woman to be your husband. So I didn't know my father, but the men in my world as I was growing up, their characteristics were the characteristics as a combination I ended up marrying, but they weren't the best example. Now, my ex husband, beautiful soul, we just weren't beautiful with each other. There were pieces that he needed because he was visualizing an image that he thought, because both of his parents were married, but I didn't have that environment. But they gave him an image of what that should have looked like in his mind. So he was trying to mold me into that person, not bothering to pay enough attention to who I was at the core of my being. And then when I looked at him, I was trying to mold him into the image of the various men that were in my life. And we clashed.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, that is a mixture for a mess all day and night.
Hmm.
We got a shout out from, I cannot pronounce her name. Maybe you can.
Nadoy
Natoy.
Chase. She has to really let me know if that's correct.
Okay.
Enjoy.
So,
Ingo.
do you know what she's saying? Because
Oh, no.
I can't see that.
We'll come back to that one. We'll decipher that one a little later.
okay. But thank you anyway for a shout out. Yes, man, that divorce thing is, whew,
Mm.
girl,
Everyone who comes out of it, even a very close people who have had long-term relationships, they will come out of it just shattered. And it's for all those same reasons.
yes.
People will pour themselves into another person, not realizing that, they're not simpatico, if you want to use that word,
Right.
and they're often working out of their own dysfunctional upbringing
Mm-hmm.
and the patterns that they've developed as an adult that continued all that dysfunction. And then when they come together, it's like dysfunction junction. They just come together. It's a perfect mess.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, people get caught up in, oh, I love you. They get caught up in the romance and the wedding and all of that, but they don't see or give themselves a chance to learn the other person. And I really appreciate what you're saying about the core of yourself, because so many times people will look at someone and say, oh, I want a husband or
Right.
I want a wife, but they don't want the person. You'll make a good wife, you'll make a good husband, but they don't want the person. And when they find out who the person is, then they're all upset about it. But you
Mm-hmm.
didn't want the person. You said you wanted a wife or a husband.
Exactly. I often ask my clients, where did you learn about marriage? A book, a TV show, or some fantasy image that someone gave you along the way? And then I ask them to take a moment to go back to before the world told you that you couldn't do certain things. There was a dream in your soul, there was a vision in your heart. And what you naturally do at the core of your being, you did then before everybody kept telling you no. That is the core of who you are. And when I
Absolutely.
get them to tap into that part of themselves, then I show them how to use that thought as a foundation to get an extension so that they are complementary when they look for someone. So if you read the book, in chapter 5 of the book, I walk through what intentions look like, what questions you needed to ask. And mind you, I didn't ask any of those questions.
Nothing teaches like experience.
I tell you, it's so funny how we learn when it's over.
But
Uh-huh.
here's the beauty about it. When I finally got clear, because my book, initially, I didn't want to write a book.
Hmm.
I just wanted to try to get through, like we all do, the hot mess. But as you shared earlier, I'm an electrical engineer by discipline, project manager by trade. My natural, logical, analytical mind, I had to start discovering and appreciating was a gift. Because, see, before the world started telling me no and I had to act a certain way, I think through, I think in outline. So I wrote a 4-page outline as I did an autopsy on my divorce. Those 4 pages gave me those questions. Those 4 pages gave me that excess insight. And it was those 4 pages that became the book. And now I'm in a new marriage with the love of my life and my best friend because I learned about me and then I saw where he was complimentary.
All right,
Mm,
man. I
right.
know that's right. I love that.
Hmm.
I love that. And what I did, I defined the person that
Mm,
would work with me.
all right.
I defined from the most important down to the least important. I put it
Mhm.
all in chronological order. I wrote
Okay.
it down on a piece of paper because
That's good.
after a while, you start to see that you keep attracting the wrong type.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
then you have to sit down and, okay, I had to look at me. Why am I attracting these idiots, so to speak?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I had to really sit down, like you said, and do a soul search,
Mhm.
dig deep, and then I had to sit down and define
Mhm.
the type of man that I wanted to be with in accordance to who I was. So it's like you said it differently. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I just felt like I needed to do that.
But see, when we tap into who we are at the core of our being, that's where your guide is. That's where your foundational direction is. And that's the part, if we ever take enough time in our worlds to know who we are, you will know what to say yes to, and you will definitely know what to say no
No,
to.
no.
Because
Yes.
as Tanya got better and clarity of who I am, When some of them jokers showed up, I'm like, oh, let's not waste your time or mine.
Right. And then what I noticed also that the way you carry yourself, the just your walk,
Mm-hmm.
everything, they know not to even say anything.
I
That's
had
true.
to learn that. Your confidence and character of who you are, it automatically eliminates people. There's a
Yes, it does.
statement that individuals often say that like-minded individuals usually attract. That is a true statement. And you
Mhm.
also have to stop and look at that on the reverse. Who are you attracting in your world? Because there's some element of who you are that they are validating. Either they are
Um,
validating a brokenness that you got used to, or they're validating some inopportune moment that you wish you had, and so they lord it over you because you don't know any better.
Wow.
oh
We need to
wow,
be
that's
clear
that's
about who
intense.
we are.
Yes. Girl,
That's intense. That's
that's very
intense.
intense.
There's a whole lot of women out there, and some men too, if they're listening, are going to say they're going through their little memory bank and saying, oh, "Yepper, that was me." I call it the
And I'm
Velcro
glad you
effect.
mentioned men because my book is for men as well. So my current husband is my editor for the
Oh,
book.
very nice.
So before COVID, I had an audience of 70%, no, 60% women, 40% men. Now that we're in this environment and when we started having this, my audience has flipped. It used to be mostly divorcees. Now it's mostly married people. It's mostly female. It's like 80-20 now.
Wow.
Oh,
That was a
very
big jump.
interesting.
That
Yeah.
is. And because I think people really want to do the right thing.
Mhm.
The COVID has had us sit still
Yeah.
Hmm.
by force.
What?
And we had no option but to get inside
Hmm.
and look at who we are, what matters to us.
Yeah.
Everything changed because of COVID,
Mm.
not just on the outside, but also on the inside.
And if it
Exactly.
hasn't, you have a problem.
That is true. So true.
If you have not changed, if you have not seen real change in yourself from
Mhm.
the beginning of COVID until now, you have a real problem.
You're right about that.
Because, like
Yes.
Ida said, we were forced to sit, we were forced to stop. And some of us, that's all we had was ourselves, There was nobody else within those four walls to deal with.
Mhm.
And so we had to deal with ourselves and people in relationships, people in marriage, people with families, same situation. They were still stuck where they were. And it's like, okay. So I can't really blame that person over there because I'm in here too. And I think that's one of the beautiful parts about the whole COVID, the pandemic, is that it's given us this time. It's really given us time to look at ourselves and, like you said, get to the core of who we are and knowing who we are. There was someone that I listened to years ago, and he's still alive now, but he did an interview. And that interview, the interviewer asked him, well, who do you say you are? And so, of
Mm.
course, he flipped it around and said, who do you think you are? And so the
Okay.
person started giving their name and their college degrees and what they did. And he said, that's not who you are. Your name is a title that was given to you. Your address is someplace where you live, and that can change. You're none of those things. You're not your bank account. You're none of those things. Who are you? And I remember that really stuck with me. And I know it took me a while before I really got it. And that's the element that's so often missing. And again, it's what you're saying in marriage. People get married and they don't know who they are. They're just blinded to it for whatever reasons. Maybe it's because I think we got talked out of it as children. We were told who we're supposed to be.
And that is so true. Look,
Yes.
I'm like really glad that you're sharing this and made that statement, Ms. Ruth, because that is the problem that a lot of my clients are running into. So I understand more why I have more married people joining me because the core of what I teach is eliminating conflict. So I give them insight about their conflict sequence because we are not taught about how to deal with conflict. But in
Mhm.
knowing who you are, it gives you an element of how you manage conflict. So I give them insight into their core values. Are you a people person? Are you a process oriented individual? Do you focus on performance? I just use simple 3 areas. And I'm a certified organizational assessment coach with a company called Core Strengths. I love the fact that they have the views of relationship IQ, that's what they call it. And
Mm.
so, with that element, it gives me a way of helping individuals tap into who they were beforehand. Now, I take it a little bit deeper because of what I do with the book and what I do with my coaching program. So, individuals that participate in that program, I walk you through 2 elements of who you were in the beginning. Like I said before the world told you no, before people had you stop doing the things that you naturally would do in the seat of your soul, there's a gift that each and every person was born with because you are someone's answered prayer. And if you were being molded by those around you that weren't clear about your gift, didn't know how to bring it out, then you're not operating in your purpose. So you're dysfunctional because you're constantly trying to figure out what is my purpose? Why am I here? What should I do? Those are parts of the answers that a lot of people had to search for in this time, and a
Mhm.
part of what I help them gather. Once you know that, it's easy to show you your conflict sequence, and you can help others get out of conflict as well.
Mm.
All righty now.
Nice.
So how do we get the book?
Yeah.
I make everything as simple as possible. Just go to my website, tanyaehood.com. Really easy. You can find various ways that you can work with me under the Work With Me tab. You can find the book and also other books that I'm a co author in as well. And some of the strategy sessions that I have with wealth development or support with getting your credit into a better financial position.
Okay.
Wow, this has been whew,
Nice.
deep,
Really
deep, deep,
good. Very, very good.
very good,
Mhm.
very,
Yeah.
very good. Because if everything is in here,
Mhm.
everything, and
Everything.
it's
We were
either
born with it.
and it's
Yeah,
either supporting you or it's not.
exactly.
You can't support it until you recognize it. Once you recognize, and that's the thing that we don't often do, people go to their graves without ever recognizing who they
Mm,
really are.
yeah.
They they're so caught up in what the world tells them, and they never get to that point where they can say, "Oh, I get it." And it really is. It's a matter of I get it. Have you ever heard of the movie The Shift?
No.
With Wayne Dyer? It's an excellent movie, and that's one of the last things that the last scenes. He has one person who is just having a difficult time getting to who he is at his core,
Okay.
and uh, Dr. Dyer says to him, you know, because the young man says, I think I get it. I think I get it. And Dr. Dyer says to him, we all will get it sometime, but why should we wait until we die?
Mm,
Wow,
yeah.
that's deep.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
deep. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that I got it. I think the person who introduced me to personal development
Mm,
Mhm.
every day because I didn't know that I did have control. I didn't know how much control I really did have.
okay.
And being introduced to personal development totally changed my life. Changed my life. And it's to a place now can't even remember how I used to be.
I can.
I
I
remember,
just,
so I don't go back.
yes, I
It's
don't
like
forget, but I do remember. Yeah. There's a,
I'm in this place that I've been in for some years now and understand the importance of working from the inside out, that I just unconsciously do it every day, every single day.
mhm. It's a daily task. It's not something that
Mhm.
you know that you get to. You never arrive. Let me put it that
Right,
way. You
right,
never arrive.
exactly.
It's a constant work on. You're constantly working on yourself, and from day to day, you never know what's going to come up. Even though you don't live in the past, there are things that will happen in the present that will take you back in a nanosecond to something in your past, and sometimes it's an aha moment. You finally understand how things have worked together. You finally
Hmm.
understand behaviors. You finally understand why you are the way you are now and decide, do I want to continue being this way or do I want to make a change? So it's that whole idea of knowing who you are is so precious. That
It
is just,
is.
I think if I had a child, that would be the thing I would tell them. And I know my mother used to do that, and I didn't understand what she was saying. And they want to claim that it's a Greek saying, but actually came from the ancient Egyptians. Man, know thyself. And I never understood what it meant. But as I've gotten older, I finally understand it. And it's the same thing. Know yourself. Not yourself in one word. Know yourself. That part of you that is indestructible and that has been there from the moment of conception. And it's still there. It will never go away, but it gets hidden. And sometimes when people get married, because we have a fairy tale idea of marriage, it just builds this castle around that self and it becomes like encased in stone. And then something like major trauma, like a divorce, will break it apart. And that's what it sounds like happened to you. It broke that apart, that castle, that fairy tale castle. And all of a sudden, you started moving towards yourself rather than towards somebody else. But when you finally had self, you were ready for somebody else who also was in that same place. And I just think that's a beautiful thing that you've done. I can't read, I want to read this book
I do
because
too.
you've ever been married, you've been in some sort of relationship where you lost yourself, and you come up out of it and you don't even know, you have no idea who you are.
That's
You
true.
just get lost. So I really commend you for the work that you're doing. And I would love to have a long, long conversation.
Oh yes. Yes.
This is one of those girl chats. Oh,
Wow.
not girl chats,
I
women
have to come
chats.
back.
Yes,
Yes,
you do.
please do. This is just a wonderful conversation.
This is
So
very wonderful.
necessary. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine the people who have listened to you and are just thinking, "Oh my gosh, she's speaking to me. She's been where
Yes.
I've been or where I am right now."
Hmm.
Yes. So your
Phenomenal.
podcast.
Yes.
Tell us about that real quick.
So the podcast was birthed from the book. And on the podcast, what I do is go through, it's basically 8 different topics that I sort of flow through because I've discovered that those were the key components that I needed support in. So I have a quick conversation if I'm just having a discussion myself or if I have a guest. It's no more than 30 minutes because I know for me, I didn't have more than 30 minutes. When I told my children I need a break, it was working up to the 30 minutes. And I could never, never, never. I thought when they got older in high school, I can get past the 30 minutes. Nope. So I figured if I couldn't get past 30 minutes with people that were 16 and 17 years old, other people can't either. So the podcast walks through a belief, a challenging belief, because sometimes we need to challenge our thoughts and what we're thinking in order for us to move into a different trajectory. I go through a discussion about finances because I needed some support and some ideas about how to get into a different position. And as you were saying earlier, Miss Ruth, we grow in different stages. I had to learn, the older people would always say, you haven't grown up enough. And I kept trying to figure out, well, how long is it going to take me to grow up? And then one day it hit me. Well, numbers repeat themselves, just on different levels. You learn to count from 1 to 10. When you get to 20, it's still 1 to 10. It's just
Mhm.
another level they call 20. Then you do the same at 30. You do the same at 40. And at each level, you still have the foundational pieces that you learn from 1 to 10, because that's what's going to get you there. But now you can expand it. Now you can grow with it. Now you can enhance what that looks like. So I walk through different conversations about finances and invite my guests, those that are listening, the podcast guests, to call me. So leave the information every week. It comes out every Tuesday on Spotify, and I have it on my YouTube channel as well, so that people can get the chance to reach me, ask their questions, and then we go through those various elements. I have a few discussions about parenting because being a mother of 2 sons, there were some things that I learned along the way that I was told by some people when I started sharing insight. Oh, you need to write that in a book. Well, I'm not ready to write that book, but I don't mind talking about it.
I understand.
So that's on the podcast. And then what else? The other topic areas, a little bit of insight about the course, because I do know that the bulk of the work that I do for individuals is the need for strategies and actionable steps. But the way that I'm wired to support, I have to give you something unique to you. See, like each of us have a unique fingerprint. The story and the impact of what we walk through is unique as well. We may have a similar walk, but I will never walk through the experiences the same way you have. So I have unique elements that I have to pour out into individuals. And a lot of that takes place in the course. So I share insight about what the core strategy is to help you eliminate conflict quickly by knowing your core strengths. And from there, we can expand a financial discussion by getting your personal credit together so you can leverage it. And I was a real estate investor, and my strategy that I used was lease options. I find that the easiest to work with when you have little people, because real estate is a numbers game for you to get the money. And so you can calculate how much money you would like to have in a year and how many deals you would need to get in order to make that happen. But with a lease option strategy, you don't leverage yourself so heavy with your finances once you get to that position where I show people, and that's a whole separate course that I walk in because there's
Wow.
nuances with that. But
Yes.
people need individual techniques and insights. So the podcast brings a lot of those things up. It's the elements of my life that I wish I knew, that I wish somebody tapped into me to give me some insight. And so I share.
I know, because
Mm.
when I was going through it, I definitely needed the red alert because I had nobody to talk to.
That is unfortunately what happens to a lot. And I share with people, it's because they don't know. People don't like dealing with chaos and conflict on a regular basis. And then when you separate a relationship, they're not sure if they were one with your ex, if they became friends with you, do they still want to keep that relationship? How does that make the ex feel if they keep a relationship with you? But if we are taught healthy relationships, it's okay for you to be friends with me and still be friends with the ex because there's not a conflict that takes place. Now there is some finagling that has to take place because of some of the chaos. Everybody don't walk out with a grand marriage, and you can't put those two individuals in the same room for a while. Because I know when my cousin decided she was going to have a cookout, I
Oh,
was not ready. And I asked her beforehand. So we have to help our friends and family understand how to support us. And I walk through some of those discussions with my clients because they are not trying to be mean and they're not trying to leave you to your own devices. They just don't know what to do. So it is there that you have to tell people. My grandmother, best lesson, you teach people how to treat you. You have to
Hmm.
teach
mhm.
them what to do. And sometimes you have to tell them the words to say to support you in the journey when they don't know.
All right,
Yeah.
now. This is definitely so heavenly
Yes, this has been very rich, very,
and
very rich.
very, very rich. Now, you're part of the Rise Summit.
Yes.
Mhm.
I love the fact that Miss Christina Johnson and her family have put this on because too many times people need this and they don't have it. And she gives so much to individuals. I am so grateful. So I had to participate. I wanted to be a part of this phenomenal event. It's going to be epic.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. She's a beautiful soul and she
Mhm.
does give with all her heart.
Yes, she does.
She's definitely a giver. So, what I know what you're going to be talking about.
Yes, it's my walk and my talk.
So, this event takes place what's the date on it so everybody knows?
February 19th through the 23rd, you get the opportunity to have so many individuals pour their insight into you. You need to register to participate because the value that's added and special giveaways.
Oh yeah, she loves to give away
Ah,
stuff.
doesn't
So
she? But
Mhm.
I
she
understand.
yeah, she definitely is a giver all the way around. So definitely come check this out because Christina is a beautiful soul. We've been working together for a few years now, and when I'm having a rough time, all I gotta do is call Christina, and She is like on it, and I'm feeling all different when I'm off the phone with her.
Indeed.
She definitely is all about supporting and helping
Mhm.
people and families, create a legacy.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what this summit does. It gives us the opportunity to reclaim who we are, inspire those around us, serve where we need to, and empower people to move through their process.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Wow, Miss Tanya.
Mhm.
This has been powerful, to say the least.
So glad
Yes.
about it.
I
Yes.
am glad about it too.
Mhm.
This has been,
Very, very much so.
yes, very rich. I mean, when you started to speak about the divorce, I had a flashback. I mean, I have a wonderful husband now. We've been married for over about 25 years now. I lose track count, but with that first one, I think you go into it. I don't know what you go into it thinking. You don't be thinking nothing for real.
That's not necessarily true. There are some people that are really clear about what they're going into the relationship with. The problem often happens is that you didn't have the discussion with the other person. You
Right.
see, when I got married, I made the assumption because I knew for me that I was a wife. The way my grandmother discussed how you're supposed to do certain things and how I was raised, being a wife was what I was good at. I'm a natural support person. That is in the pieces of my soul. It's tied to my DNA. I have no problem being a background support system, the cheerleader for how to get you through your next process. And that to me was part of what marriage is supposed to look like. I
Right.
didn't have a complete example growing up, but because my grandmother was giving me some insights about what it looked like biblically, and I didn't apply all of those lessons, y'all. But had I done so, it would have given me an idea to be clear where he was. So when he and I got together, we were in a space where he had a different vision about what marriage looks like. I had a different vision about what marriage looked like. So we did what we were supposed to getting married. What we should have done was be clear about what that vision looked like. That's the part where we failed. I did not ask him certain things. And part of it, I didn't know what to ask.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's the piece that I help individuals get clarity about because a girlfriend of mine called my first marriage the practice marriage. Wasn't going into it for the practice, but since I was practicing, let's make this practice perfect so we don't have to keep repeating the process.
Mm.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
is what I show my clients. What does that look like? And here are some key components you need to be clear about that next individual. So when my current husband showed up, I knew what I was looking for. I
Mm.
also wrote out a list. So it was 20 little statements about me. Now, granted, a lot of what I was writing was some things I had to get grounded in. And God took me on a 3-year journey about was what we were supposed to look at, what he said, and be in a marriage, because God is the author of marriage. So if
Right.
you're trying to fix something, you go to the manufacturer. When we want to get our car fixed, it's best to go to a Nissan dealer if you're going to get a Nissan fix. It's best for you to go and get your Frigidaire fixed at Frigidaire if you need your refrigerator fixed. They
Right.
have more clarity and the exact parts. What I did not learn well enough in church, and this is a disservice that church does, because people get stuck in religion. God never intended for us to have religion. He always intended for us to have relationship. And if you are clear about relationship, then there are relational questions you will ask. There are relational elements you'll look for. And like Ms. Ruth was saying, when you start walking through the core of who you are and asking, who are you? That will automatically be your stand. So when you see the other individual, I now see you. I saw my current husband because he knew who he was. But I had a template that God gave me in First Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. A lot of people use that just for deacon. God intended for that to be used just for a
Absolutely.
godly man. And
Mhm.
then he walked me through Isaiah chapter 28, verses 1 through 8. That was the foundation of who God is as my cover. And here's the thing I love about being a woman: in a marriage, I am covered. I am doubly covered by God first, my husband second. And God's first covering gives me insight about what that second covering is supposed to look like. And if that second covering doesn't do what the first one said, I'm not even supposed to be bothered with it. Nope, reject, start over, let's find a new one. That is our
Mm.
responsibility. But we don't take the time because we're not taught that God is about relationship. The Bible is a relational book. It has multiple things, history, so you have a historical journey with it. But at the core of what it is, it's a relationship to give you insight. When my grandmother said, it's your basic instruction book before leaving earth, I
Yes.
didn't
Yes.
understand. But when I was going through creating that 4-page outline, I tapped into it. And that's where some of those elements came from. And that's where some of my list of 20 that I wrote. Now, granted, I'm still human, so those first 3 were all carnal. And then God had to pause me and was like, we just went through 3 years of lessons, and that's what you write? So it is what it is, y'all.
God, that's right. Wow, Tanya, thank you. We're definitely going to have to do this again. We
Yeah.
enjoyed every moment, every minute of
Hmm.
this conversation.
I'm
Yeah, we
glad.
did.
Awesome.
And
Thank you so much.
I am blessed and highly flavored to have met you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you. Thank you so much for all that you do because telling you the world needs you.
Oh, thank you.